Hi there, I'm Timothy Linsdau, video producer and Christian, putting on my hat of politics today. Court declares Obama's EPA waters of the United States rule unlawful, saying that the vast expansion of jurisdiction over waters and land traditionally within the state's regulatory authority cannot stand. Like and comment on my video and subscribe to support my channel if you would. Thank you. That'd be great. Okay, what's going on here? Some time back, there was some noise about the Obama administration's far-reaching waters of the United States rule, or WOTUS, and the pushback it received at the time. State suits are making their way through the courts, and there's a good news to report from that. The government's usual overreach. A U.S. District Judge, Lisa Godbee Wood, has handed a victory to the state of Georgia and 9 other states that sued the federal government, as well as the rest of the nation, by declaring that the WOTUS rule is unlawful. Now, the judge stated that the rule, which was intended to provide better protection of the nation's water, violated the Clean Air Act and the Administrative Procedure Act, and she remanded it back to the Environmental Protection Agency and the Army Corps of Engineers to further work. Boy, oh boy, the government's reach, government's overreach. Here's some examples. Let me go on a little bit more. She said that while the agencies have authority to interpret the phrase waters of the United States, that authority isn't limitless, and therefore that their decisions in doing so do not fall under what's called the Chevron deference. And it's a matter of case law in which, for lack of a better phrase, the tie goes to the agency. Now, here's an example. One of the problems that happened to a farmer in Wyoming, and I know something about Wyoming, I grew up there, probably the least populated state in the United States. This guy, he constructs a stock pond on his own property, probably out in the middle of nowhere. Nobody bothering nobody, no nothing. He was being fined $37,500 a day for the construction of that pond. Just an example of the overreach. The American Farm Bureau Federation, which earlier this year won a decision in Texas that also found the rule legally wanting, they praised the Woods decision. Wow. Hopefully Congress will provide a clear definition to include the when navigable means. Now, does navigable mean at the time a territory or the original 13 colonies became a state? Does it mean navigable at a date of Clean Water Act passage? Does it mean navigable today? Navigable at the same other specific time? The only definition that makes sense is what the Act applies to waterways that are navigable at any given time. Now, if a waterway stops being navigable, it's no longer covered by the Act. If it starts being navigable again, it comes back under the Act. It also seems that it should not cover even navigable waterways that are entirely within one state with no outlet, so that they cannot be used in interstate or international commerce. Again, now, if someone were to dig a canal that links this waterway to the outside world, then it would come under the Act. There are also circumstances where there can be a stream that doesn't run year-round, so when it's running, it becomes navigable. Just to give you an idea how confusing this issue can be, and our politicians didn't think it through well enough again. As some say, well, it wasn't what we intended to happen. Here we go again. The EPA badly misread the Supreme Court precedent. It encroached on the traditional powers of the states and simply ignored basic principles of the Administrative Procedure Act when it issued the unlawful regulation. Now, the judge found that the WOTUS rules, vast expansion of jurisdiction over waters and land traditionally within the United States regulatory authority, cannot stand absent a clear statement from Congress in the CWA. Now, since no such statement has been made, the WOTUS rule is unlawful under the CWA. Now, she also determined the agency's inclusion of all interstate waters in the definition of waters of the United States, regardless of navigability, extends their jurisdiction beyond the scope of the CWA because it reads the term navigability out of the CWA. Oh my, what's going on here? The Clean Water Act gobbling up everybody's rights. Now, it's important we have clean water, no doubt about that. But to put everybody under the weight of the hand of the government for people probably enforcing this rule that hadn't even seen the place. The 2015 WOTUS rule is a clear example of federal overreach that infringed on the state's traditional role as primary regulators of land and water resources within their borders. Now, it is a good thing that they were able to fight for relief and look forward to reforms that will permanently relieve farmers and landowners of unnecessary burdens that the 2015 WOTUS rule created. The overreach again. Interestingly, U.S. Senator Mike Braun, a Republican of Indiana, and U.S. Senator Joni Ernst, Republican of Iowa, recently introduced the Define WOTUS Act, which asserts congressional responsibility to define what the term waters of the United States actually means. Using these ambiguous terms allows regulators to go willy-nilly about trouncing on people's rights, simply because they don't even know what the law or rule is. But fulfilling their role as masters through agency power, if you will. This is the problem. People are enforcing these rules, making these rules that aren't even elected. So what do we got? Overrule. The Obama-era WOTUS rule threatened Iowa's farmers, manufacturers, and small businesses by giving the federal government authority to regulate water on 97% of land in the state. This is quoting U.S. Senator Joni Ernst. Now, President Trump and his administration have taken tremendous steps to roll back this far-reaching regulation and provide for more certainty with a new, clearer definition of WOTUS. But it's the job of Congress, let me repeat it, the job of Congress to make a new, reasonable definition permanent. And that's what this bill does, and ensures more predictability and workability for Iowans for years to come. So hopefully they get it right. There were other organizations. One fellow said he was ahead of his time 10 years or so ago. North Carolina tried to commandeer all property within 50 feet of a small stream or even a drainage ditch. The DENR, one of the agencies, had a public hearing which this person attended. He says, I took a sign reading, "My property is not a resource," and handed out flyers regarding property rights. When I spoke up at the meeting, the chief bureaucrat asked me to leave. Well, there we are. Our rights being defended by a bureaucrat. Here we go again. Wow. Man, oh man. So, apparently Americans have won out for success in defending their rights now that the court has declared that the waters of the United States rule unlawful. I like that quote, vast expansion of jurisdiction over waters and land traditionally within the state's regulatory authority cannot stand. Now that is cool stuff. So, you know what? The battle goes on. You know, it's a struggle, but that's how it is. So, like and comment on this video, subscribe to support my channel, you know, and get out there and pay attention to what's going on and make it a great day against those travesties.